Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
All right, everyone. This is going to be a little bit of an experimental podcast episode. We're doing this on Melissa's phone in an Airbnb in the Tate neighborhood of Istanbul. So we just did the Family Brand Forever Family Retreat in Croatia. We were on a boat for 7 days with some really committed, awesome families.
Which I don't even think we've ever talked about it that much, but maybe we'll save that for a different episode.
Yeah, and then we did it 3 years ago. We went on this trip 3 years ago with our family. And then the owner of that company, Anthony Solomori, we just became really great friends with him on the trip. He's an amazing guy and has a beautiful little family. He really fell in love with our family. We fell in love with Anthony. And after that trip, he went on and bought the Family Brand online course, went through with his family, created their family values. And then he I think approached him. I can't remember if it was me or Melissa, and just said, hey, we ought to do a cruise for families, but a family cruise where we have some intentional family workshops and things in the morning. So it was amazing. And then since we were going to be all that way to Europe, we asked the kids, hey, what do you guys want to do for a week after? And we were throwing around a lot of ideas around other European countries. And it was actually Tate and Tanner, Tate is actually sitting next to us right now. He's our special guest. We have a very special guest here on the Family Brand podcast today. Tate, say what's up.
What's up, guys?
So this is Tate. So we were throwing around all kinds of European countries, and Tate and Tanner were like, you know what? Let's do something different than Europe. Let's do something different than what we've done. Let's do something a little more adventurous, maybe a little more wild. And they threw out Turkey, Istanbul. So that's where we are. And so far, I'd say, yeah, it's been amazing. I've loved being here. And so we thought, I feel like maybe we've taken a little bit of an unconventional approach as a family to travel and adventure and maybe raising our kids. And it's really worked for us. And so we thought it would be fitting, being that we're here in Istanbul, sitting on our bed in our Airbnb, record an episode with Tate that Melissa has wanted to record for quite some time about, just education and homeschooling, especially when it comes to like your older kids, maybe teenagers.
So Tate, as Chris mentioned, has had maybe, at least in my opinion, kind of an unconventional school experience. And Tate actually just graduated high school last month in May. And Tate is really excited to be here and share everything with you. No, I've actually been wanting to do a podcast with Tate for like a year. Here we are. I really am glad that everyone gets to hear from Tate because I think he's amazing. And I don't know, he has a lot to share that I think you can benefit from. So maybe we'll just jump into it. And again, the point here that I'd love to share is like, if you are a listener and you're considering homeschooling, we've actually met a lot of people recently. I feel like that, it's the summertime. People are trying to decide, what are we going to do for school next year? If you're that type of person who's like, are we going to homeschool? Are we going to go to the charter school? Are we going to go to the public school? Are we going to, what are we going to do next year? I think this perspective might be informative. So Tate, maybe let's just start with a little bit of background. Like, what did your education look like K through 12?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I don't remember who, but I was telling someone about what my school journey has looked like so far just like a couple weeks ago. And that was the first time I've ever really laid the whole thing out. And I was like, dang, I've done a lot of different forms of schooling over the years. But Kindergarten through the first semester of second grade, I was at ALA, which is, what's that? Just like a public school,
Charter.
uh, charter school.
Mhm.
Yeah. So kindergarten through the first semester of second grade was charter school. And then I remember my mom and my dad came to me and my little brother Tanner one time in second grade, and they mentioned the idea of homeschool to us, and I had never even heard of homeschooling before. Like I thought it was illegal. I didn't even know you could take your kids out of school. That's what I thought back then. I was like, wait, you can actually do that? And but they explained it to us, and eventually me and Tanner were like, yeah, that does sound kind of cool. We want to try it out. So for the second semester of my second grade year, me and my little brother Tanner, we homeschooled.
And Tanner was in first grade.
Yeah, he was in first grade. And then I don't really remember why, but for my third grade, I decided to go back to public school, but at a different school. It's called Quartz Hill Elementary, just a public school in Gilbert.
I was having Indy that year.
Oh, yeah. So my mom was having Indies, so she was busy. So for all third grade, I went to Quartz Hill, just public school. It was the first time I had ever been to public school. And then after that, I didn't love being back in quote unquote like regular school. So I started homeschooling again for fourth and fifth grade. And then I decided to go back to ALA for sixth grade. This was in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in ALA all the way up till spring break, and that's when COVID happened. So we're back to homeschooling again, but I don't even think I did any more school for the rest of sixth grade. And then seventh grade, I did something called Prenda. How would you describe Prenda, Mom?
It's like, I think they call it a microschool. So it's like there's like a pod of families that get together, and there's one teacher, and all the kids in that age group. What was that? Maybe like fifth through seventh grade.
Sixth through eighth,
Sixth through
I want to say. Yeah.
all the kids in that pod go to that teacher's house every day, and he is their teacher.
Yeah. So the first semester of seventh grade, that's what I did. And then that's right when we were moving to Hawaii. And so when we got to Hawaii, the second semester of seventh grade and the first semester of eighth grade, I homeschooled while I was there. And then after that is when we moved to Pima, Arizona. And just for the sake of trying to meet more people and trying to make more friends, because we were brand new to Pima, we never lived there, I started in the public school in Pima the second semester of eighth grade, and then the first semester of my freshman year. And then since then, I've homeschooled, but the whole time I've been homeschooling during high school, I was actually enrolled in taking classes from the local community college by where we lived in Arizona. And then, yeah, I just graduated with my associate's degree in psychology this past May.
Which the thing I think is most awesome about, which that is amazing hearing Tate say that, because there's a lot of things that I'm like, wow, I forgot about a few of those things. I love that Tate graduated college with an associate's in psychology, but doesn't have his high school diploma or GED. I just think that's awesome. And so Tate, what would you say? I think there's a lot of parents that want to homeschool or want to allow their children to homeschool, but worry that they're going to ruin their kids or they're going to fall behind. Based on your experience, what would you say to parents that have that concern about allowing their kids to homeschool, even if they maybe want them to?
I think it's probably harder to mess up your kids than you think, because I was actually really worried about that in fourth and fifth grade myself, which maybe that was ridiculous for me at that age to be worried about that. But then once I got back into school, like sixth grade, or once I started going to high school after I'd homeschooled for like another 2 years, both times I was like doing completely fine, performing like really well in all my classes and all that. Yeah, so I would just say it's a lot harder to actually mess up your kids than you think, and if you just have like a little bit of routine and just intention around it, it'll go really well, in my opinion.
And I know you're homeschooling journey and going to EA, the local community college, hasn't always been easy. And so I think sometimes that's okay too if parents realize that it may be a little bit messy the first, second semester. I don't say this to embarrass you, Tate, but to acknowledge you. But tell us, how'd your first semester of taking in-person classes at the community college go?
Well, the first semester I took online classes, but yeah, it went really, really bad. I took 4 classes, I want to say, and I failed all 4 of them. So I failed my art class, I failed my math class, failed my English class, and I failed my history class. I failed all of them. And I never failed a class in my life, but I guess you could say I fell apart. But
And I think we failed Tate too, and just not knowing how to help support him or challenge him or prepare him for that.
And I think a lot of that semester, if I remember correctly, we were traveling, and that's why we opted to do online so you could keep some of those plans that we had. But in hindsight, I'm like, your first semester of college classes at like, you're probably 15 then. I'm like, you had no business doing those all online. And I remember Dad and I would check in with you and be like, how are your classes going? And you'd be like, they're going great.
Hey, I know you're out surfing in Hawaii with some buddies, but are you doing your work? Yep.
yeah.
But then, oh, go ahead, Tate.
Oh, I didn't have anything.
But then to your last 2 semesters, what were your grades?
It was a lot better. Well, I was taking quite a bit more classes too. I think I took, I want to say 17 credit hours each semester, my last 2 semesters. And I got all A's and B's both those semesters. So an upwards trend for sure.
Yeah, Tate killed it. So I guess from a parent's perspective, I would just offer that I think sometimes when one of your kids gets a not so great grade or has a bad semester, maybe you think you've ruined them or their life's over, and it's like it's actually not even close.
And jumping back to something you said earlier, Chris, about like being behind or quote unquote ruining your kids. For Tate, it did work out that there was a few maybe gaps that his classmates had learned that he hadn't. I can't even remember specifically, but I remember when you went back to 6th grade, we would like pat each other on the back when you were like doing okay in 6th grade, being like, okay, we did it. Yes. But even if there were some gaps, which I do remember there were, maybe it was, I don't remember if this is it, but something like fractions, for example. Maybe they learned fractions a certain way and you didn't, and they're revisiting it. There's always a way to like catch up. Like there's always resources available. So even if your child does miss something, it's easy enough. Like, or there are resources or ways that you can catch them up. So it's not like they're ruined forever or there's no coming back. It's like, oh, there's a gap here. What do we need to do to get you caught up? So I think that's important to remember too.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to acknowledge Melissa for her effort. None of this would be possible without her. When people ask, "Oh, you guys homeschool?" I'd always be like, "Well, drop the guys part. It's just Melissa. Like I support it, but she's doing the work." And then also acknowledge Tate. You know, Tate, did it feel like it took courage for you to follow an unconventional path? Did you ever have thoughts like, I should be going to school or I should be doing it the way I see so many other people doing it? Or were you like, no, this is what works for me?
I wouldn't say that I ever had doubts from in the eyes of like other people's perspective, if that makes sense. Because I guess I just ever since like second grade is when I started homeschooling. So it wasn't ever something that I was like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, that's what I'd say, I guess.
What would you say have been the benefits to you, your life? What has been the benefit to you, do you think, at this point from taking the path you took with your education so far?
Well, I did get ahead in some aspects. Like I have my associate's degree right now. I'd say another thing, it just left me a lot more free time, which has been during high school, which was awesome. And also I just got to learn about stuff that I was actually interested in. Like I took I've taken like guitar classes, I've taken like personal training classes at the high school. Just a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have been able to take probably if I was in regular school.
Your Was it called cinematography?
Oh yeah, what was it? Intro to film studies, or I took a bird watching class
Yeah.
one semester. It was just we just talked about birds once a week. That was awesome.
And I even remember when you were homeschooling with mom, you and mom had like a cooking class, a baking class. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of spurred Tate's a really great cook and baker. And I think that was, fostered by his approach to school. Also, I would say, Tate, how much do you think getting to just travel more and have life experiences that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have been able to have had you been in school, like coming on a lot of business trips with me, although that's not necessarily considered part of a formal education, it's absolutely, educational, has that exposure to like travel and other people that you've met that are entrepreneurs, business owners, doing things in the world, whatever it is. Do you feel like that's shaped some of your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, like some of your education?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like one of the big ones especially when you travel to places that are a lot different than the place that you live in, is I think it just gives you perspective on how differently some people live than you. I would say, like when we went to Japan, it was super different. Or even we went on a service trip to Mexico, I think in 2024, and helped like build houses there. And that one just helped me be really grateful, just how lucky I am to be born in America, to be born into my family. But there's this term I read one time. It's called sonder, and the meaning of it is the realization that everyone's experiences are as vivid and unique as your own, or something like that. I think that was one thing that traveling kind of helped me realize is there's so many people just like me that are having like their own vivid experiences and living their lives like completely different than I am. Just kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah, and I would say Tate, probably more than any of our kids, has traveled with me. And part of the reason he's been able to travel with me is because he had the freedom to do so. And I always really loved being able to say, hey, Tate, I'm going to this event, or I'm going to this conference, or I'm going to be speaking here, or I'm doing this. You want to come? And a lot of times Tate would be like, yeah, and could. And that's one of the things that I think we really are limited by in society, is this thinking that education is only in a school, or it's only formal. And I would say that's actually like the smallest part of most people's education. It's like that's just one, I guess, aspect of it.
And to that point, I feel like in this day and age, there's so many options. Even if you do like Tate, he wanted somewhat of a high school experience. So he still did he still played sports in high school, which I think we should mention that Arizona is where we live is pretty friendly to homeschool students. So you're still able to play sports in high school. You still went to a lot of the dances. And I don't know, I think that added to your high school experience as well. And are fortunate that we live really close to a 2-year college. And so we were able to take advantage of that. And that was what I had someone that had done that themselves with their child that I think kind of exposed us to the idea first that like, well, you could homeschool, but what if the teachers were just, these college teachers and you still keep this transcript and everything as if they're in high school? But that's an idea too. There's just so many, there's purely online high schools now. There's just so many options available. If you're listening and you feel like, what you're doing now isn't working, like, yeah, look and see what else is out there. I do want to see what you'd say to this question, Tate. I know that because your high school experience maybe wasn't a traditional high school experience, there were some things that you maybe felt like you missed out on or didn't feel like you had the traditional high school experience, which you and I have talked about before. But what would you say to anyone listening? Like, do you have any? Maybe I'll just ask it this way: do you have any regrets or things that you would do differently, like looking back
Or
on
just anything you would change.
change? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think this one is kind of obvious, but I think like the social aspect. I still had a bunch of friends that I hung out with and stuff, but I probably wasn't as social as a lot of my friends that were in high school, which kind of makes sense. But looking back, I wish I would have just made more of an effort to like hang out with people and be more social, like day by day or week by week. And another thing, I guess this just applies more to homeschooling rather than being in high school, but I did have a lot more like free time on my hands. I wish I would have been more productive with it, whether that was just like working on a hobby or a skill or even getting a job. I had enough time. I could have made a lot more money if I wanted to, probably.
So you're saying one of the things is because you had that free time, which was awesome, maybe just some of how you use that free time that you did have.
Yeah, like being more intentional with it.
Well, Tate, I love being your dad. You're an amazing kid, amazing man now. Tate's 18, y'all. So
He'll be 19 this month, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
he's a man.
Punk status.
Yeah. I think it's so cool that you've taken an unconventional path. And I know it hasn't been easy. I know it hasn't been convenient. So I just want to acknowledge you for having the courage to take a path that really aligns with you. And that's one of the things I've always loved about Tate is he's never been afraid to try. Not that he's done it perfectly, none of us do, but Tate, as much as anyone I've ever seen, really tries to follow what aligns with him. And I think all of us struggle with that, well, what does align with us? And then it's one thing to even take the time to figure out what aligns with you and then to have the courage to actually try to follow it. And Tate has been a great demonstration of that. And I also want to acknowledge you, Melissa, for just how you've shown up for Tate in his education. And again, none of this is possible without you and your sacrifice and your commitment and encouragement. And yeah, I think hopefully this inspires more people to think about, yeah, what do I want my education to look like? Maybe I have more of a hand in shaping it and creating it than I thought I did. And what do I want the education to look like for my children? Because that impacts like so much of your life is impacted actually by your child's education. Can you travel? Can you not travel? Do they go to a school? Do they homeschool? Do they world school? Do they it's just crazy what's available. And I just think most families and kids don't ever realize, I think, that they have the opportunity to maybe question it and really, look at what works for their family.
Yeah, I'm glad, Tate. Thanks for recording this with us. And I also want to acknowledge you, like Dad said, for, I don't know, you're just always down to like, hey, this isn't working for me. I want to find something that does. And you're not afraid to like try new things, do new things, meet new people. And I love that about you. Would you have any final words of advice to a mom or dad or even a kid listening who's like, oh man, what I'm doing, just say they're in high school and they're like not loving it, but they don't really know what else they could do? Have any final words or advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, I guess at the very least, just realize that you have more options than just public school. And at the very least, just look into what those might be and what you maybe could do instead of public school if it's not something that you're enjoying. And then I guess the other piece of advice would just be like, be intentional with your time, no matter what you choose to do in high school. Be intentional, like with your school and your free time.
One thing maybe we should have said at the beginning, this is also possible if you see things very differently as husband and wife. Like, I think I come from a viewpoint of don't let school get in the way of your education. And I think Melissa comes more from a viewpoint of make sure you go to school so you can get an education. And so it can be a creation. Like, you don't have to have everyone in the family gung-ho about one approach or another, but you create it together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that we definitely did have conversations about that. And we have not, I feel like we've mostly been on the same page, Chris and I. And, as Tate got older, he was definitely involved in the conversations too. But I think you raise a good point that it's not always just perfectly smooth and easy. It does require conversations. Okay. You have got this. You'll do what's best for your kids, for your family. And encourage you to get out there and seek what else is out there if something's not working, and you got this.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.